All right, this is layout number 1 in a series of videos that I'm making to teach you how and when to use cue ball spin so that you can predict where the cue ball is going to end up next. So not only are we going to cover all of the different types of spin, top, top right, right, bottom, etc., but we're also going to do it in slow speed, medium speed, and fast speed. All right, so as promised, let's go over where the cue ball is going to go using all different spins. All right, so first we're going to use top spin, or what we call noon, as if we were looking at the face of a clock. And these are going to be all with a nice slow speed, about 35% power. And that's what top spin looks like off the rail. Now here comes top right, or 130. We're going to get a much more dramatic spin off that bottom short rail. Now next we have 3 o'clock, and we're going to see a dramatic spin off that bottom rail as it angles back towards the middle of the table. This one's going to be 430, bottom right, also taking a nice spin off of the rail at slow speed. And also I want you to notice how that bottom spin slows the cue ball down, holding its position. Now 6 o'clock, or bottom spin, really slows the cue ball down, and it comes out straight off of that bottom rail, holding position. Now 730 is also a bottom spin, but it's a bottom outside spin. So we're going to see the cue ball take a spin towards me and still holding position. So now we have 9 o'clock, but we don't have any bottom spin. So the cue ball is going to take a slight turn towards me, but back towards the middle of the table. See how much faster 9 o'clock is than 730? Now high right, or 1030, has a little bit more power to it, but it's still outside spin, so it grabs that rail and slows down. So now we're going to increase from about 35% power to about 50% power and see how that changes the cue ball's trajectory. So again, we're going to start with top spin, or noon, and we're going to watch this cue ball hit the object ball and then bounce off that bottom rail and moving forward still to the left rail. And now we're going to be adding inside spin, high right, 130, and we see the ball spin dramatically off that bottom rail, bringing the cue ball all the way back to the top right corner. Now you're going to notice as we move on to 3 o'clock, or right spin, we get that same dramatic spin off of the bottom rail, and it brings the cue ball all the way up table again towards that right pocket. Now with bottom right, or 430, we're going to notice the same type of spin that we had in the last 2 shots, but because it's bottom spin, it's going to slow the cue ball down so it doesn't go all the way up towards that top right pocket. Now going back to straight bottom 6 o'clock, this is the maximum slowdown shot. So we're going to see the cue ball bounce off that bottom rail and come back straight, holding position. Now let's do an overlay of 130 at soft speed and medium speed, and you can see how similar the paths are, but where the cue ball ends up is different. Now when we compare top right and bottom right at the same speed, we see that the cue ball's path is almost identical, but where the cue ball ends up is slightly different. All right, let's get back to bottom left, 730, and see how the spin brings the ball back towards me and landing right on the spot. Now, when we move to left spin, or 9 o'clock, we don't have any of that bottom spin. So the cue ball grabs that rail with reverse spin and comes back up the table. And last but not least, top left, 1030, we're going to see that cue ball grab the rail again and take a nice little spin before it converts to a natural roll and heads up table. Let's watch it again in slow motion. We see the cue ball take that little J-shaped spin, and that's because the cue ball is still spinning forward after it hits the object ball and the rail. But once it loses that forward spin, it just becomes a natural roll and heads straight in its natural trajectory. All right, so now that we've done soft and medium speed, let's bump it up to high speed, about 70% power, and see exactly where each spin goes. All right, first up is going to be top spin, and we see how the ball continued to carry forward, touching the left rail, and then moving up table. Top right takes an almost identical path to noon because of all the forward momentum, but we get more movement because of running English. Right spin takes a dramatic spin off of the bottom rail and widens the angle, which makes it turn off of the left rail and then scratch in the top right pocket.
Oh no.
Bottom right slows the cue ball down into the bottom rail, where the spin takes off of the left rail and widens the direction so it touches the top rail almost center. Bottom English is going to slow the cue ball down again after contact with the object ball. And then that backward spin is going to make the cue ball come off the rail, not straight, but back towards me a little bit before eventually converting to a natural roll. Bottom left spin is also going to slow the cue ball down after contact, hitting that bottom rail and then spinning left back towards me and then off the right rail towards the middle of the table. Now, left spin, unlike bottom left, has a little bit more power, so it's going to slam into that bottom rail with spin and then take a nice left turn back towards me and then go further up the table. Now, check out top right. Because it's moving with forward spin and right, you see how it curves there? Let's check that one out again. Now I went ahead and slowed this replay down. We're going to have two types of spin, top and right. So the top spin is going to keep the ball moving forward towards that left rail. So you're going to see it curve before being converted into a natural roll, angle in, angle out. Now let's watch it one more time. The forward spin is only right after contact and hitting the rail, then it becomes a natural roll with a more predictive angle in, angle out. Now, if you haven't yet, check out this very comprehensive video that I put together. It's very similar to this video, but it has more information about the tangent line, about running English, reverse English, inside spin, and outside spin. And if you want to watch this video next, click on the top corner of the screen. Click here if you want to watch another one of my videos.